hier über den Dächern von Köln. Ville Valo von him.
And
the Dome.
Yes. That's my new side project. Ville Valo and the Dome.
Sounds kind of techno-ish, actually.
Oh yeah, I've been asking for advice from Scooter.
Yeah,
so I'm
right.
hoping it to be super big in the pop charts.
We're looking forward to that.
I'm not.
Not.
Okay.
The new record, is that the first record you wrote when you were sober?
No, I've always been writing old music sober, but I've never toured sober.
Okay, so it wasn't any difference in the making of the record and the studio?
Maybe let's say during writing the previous albums, maybe I was working on a song, and then in the end of the night I went into a pub and get wasted. So this time around I was just working on a song and went to bed after it was finished.
Yeah.
So I spent more energy on the music, but the basic writing process has always been happening sober. It's you can't write when you're drunk because your fingers don't work and stuff like that. So you, after maybe 4 pints, you can still do it, but not more. So a little buzz is fine, but not more. But yeah, he was just a bit more energetic. I was concentrating a bit more writing the material and then rehearsing with the lads.
Mm-hmm. So it's a full band effort, or are you the main writer of the new material?
Well, I wrote all the songs, all the riffs, and all the melodies and stuff like that, as always. So the rest of the guys, they have a very important part in bringing in the rock and bringing in the way of playing the instruments, and it is a sound of a band, but it's a band playing my songs, you know.
I noticed the biggest difference to me are the synthesizers, the keyboards.
Right.
They're pretty 80s, actually.
Yeah, a lot of them are.
Some programming, was that the influence of Matt Squire, the producer, or did you come up with it? Or the
Not
band?
really. It was more like me and Burton. We were, we grew up in the 80s that would like that kind of vibe, but then again, we used a lot of string type of things and pianos or whatever in the past, and we were saying that we'd rather use synths to sound like synth, you know, as opposed to synth trying to copy a sound of a trombone or whatever. And then, you know, Burton is a big fan of Kraftwerk, and my whole idea behind the album was to make it sound somewhere in between Depeche Mode and Guns N' Roses, or Depeche Mode, or let's say Aha and The Cult. Have a big American sounding rock album, but with the slight melancholy twist of the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s pop.
Right. So did you pick Matt Squire when you had that in mind already? Or did it came up when you were working with him?
Oh, well, you know, I met a few producers, and everybody obviously had their own ways of thinking about the album, and Matt was the only one who had similar sort of vibe already. He wanted the choruses to be big, and he wanted the album to be melodic. And we've always been about melodies and the songs, and, you know, strong guitar riffs too, but it's important to have that fine balance, that fine line between. And so he got it immediately, and then the rest happened very naturally. You know, Matt was born 76, so same year as me and Linde, so we knew exactly, you know, the reference points, because we were listening to exactly similar sort of music when growing up, so that was the easy part. And we would just reference it to the theme of Knight Rider and Berlin's Take My Breath Away and stuff like that. So it was fun. Fun.
Yeah, that tells why it's pretty 80s.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a modern sounding rock album, but the synths are really 80s.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is a modern synth sound? There is none. Everybody just tries to sound analog, you know, virtual analog. All the analog synths try to sound like a Moog. So why don't you use a Moog if you want to sound like one, you know? Because they're unreliable, they don't stay in tune, and they're very expensive. But we didn't want the album to sound retro, or then like trance, like Scooter shit. And a lot of bands use those kinds of synths, and I hate dancey synths. So it's got to be Live to Tell era stuff, or Aha stuff, you know, what they did with Living Daylights and all that. It's great. It just takes me back in time, and then it's very cinematic, because a lot of, like, Vangelis doing Blade Runner's soundtrack, all that stuff. It's like, that's obviously a huge influence to everybody or anybody who does anything to do with synths. And then Kraftwerk, obviously. So it's Jean-Michel Jarre, Kraftwerk, and Vangelis, Jan Hammer, and Giorgio Moroder. Those are the only kind of people who really made what synth is nowadays, I think.
Did you ever meet Kraftwerk?
No, I never had the chance. Actually, we did Top of the Pops a few years back on the same day, but and the funniest thing was that Kraftwerk had an own dressing room for the robots. so that was the coolest thing ever. But no, we didn't dare to say anything to them. We were too excited.
The robots.
Well, I think I knocked on the door of the robots, but there was no answer.
Wow, what a surprise.
Indeed.
Talking about the lyrics, they are very dark. You used in the title to use words like death, or dying, or solitude. Was it a dark time when you write the lyrics?
No, it was a hopeful time. You know, you got to remember that being scared to death of something, you probably have that saying in Germany, or in German as well. We haven't finished pelkään kuollakseni. So you could say, I'm scared to death of going to school today because everybody's got the swine flu. It doesn't mean that you're talking about dying,
right?
In essence. And then a certain thing dying means that a certain thing is withering away. Let's say the day is dying. It's not about death and dying. It's not about you hanging yourself up the rafters and killing yourself.
So it's more about the dramatic sound of the titles.
Well, doesn't everybody like drama? I don't want to write songs about Volvos or you know, Volkswagens or whatever. That's boring. Or something which is ordinary, or
right.
Marlboro Lights,
right?
Or hotels. You know, there's got to be drama involved always.
And what is the idea of the title, Love in Theory and Praxis?
Well, the title of the album is Screamworks, Love in Theory and Practice, chapters 1 to 13. That's the full title. So Screamworks that's the main title for the album. And for me, it just means the cathartic process of getting songs out of yourself. It is a big inner scream and an outer scream as well, and there's a lot of screams on the album. And the subtitle, or the undertitle for the album, Love in Theory and Practice, is a pun because I find it being a paradox. I can't, in my intelligence, can't see a theoretical side of love or a practical side of love. You can see a theoretical side of a relationship or a practical side of a relationship, but love is way larger than that and more magical. So that's the big pun of the title.
Matt produced bands like The Used and stuff, and to me, I never thought about him being emo, but now when I thought about Matt, I noticed all those elements, like the look with the dark eyes and stuff, and the emotional sound. I mean, you were actually one of the pioneers of emo. Don't you think so?
Well, it's a funny genre. I've been actually saying that, you know, I don't know what emo is. For me, emo stands for emotional hardcore. So originally it came from hardcore bands who didn't sing about political issues. They started singing about their personal issues. So that's where it came from. And then all of a sudden, like, well, is Fallout Boy, are they an emo band or The Used or whatever? I don't know what it means. If it means that music is emotional, then Elvis Presley was an emo kid as well. Drama you have to blame on Shakespeare. I don't think that an emo band invented the concept of drama. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, I think it's just one of the subgenres, like sludge metal or thrash metal back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, or speed metal or whatever. You just have to invent
just
new
one of those many
categories.
categories.
Yeah. For me, emo always stood for what I understood was it's American bands who are whining about their girlfriends who have haircuts like that.
Right.
And who sound overproduced.
Right. So that's not him. We agree on that.
Well, you know, we don't have the haircuts. And, you know, there's more European sense of Wagner, you know, big drama, that kind of a thing, like pomposity, you know, pompous things going on, as opposed to trying to keep it real. We're trying to keep it surreal. You know,
Okay.
You know, it's I think that we come from a school of Dio more than the school of some like super honest songwriters. Let's say Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah. Talking about Dio, have you seen Heaven and Hell on the latest tour? Actually,
I missed Heaven and Hell on that tour. They were playing Helsinki, but I missed the gig. But
quite good.
I've understood that they're very, very good. Very, very good.
The last record, Venus Doom, was very heavy.
It was pretty heavy,
and great critics, but it didn't sell as much.
Yeah.
The new record,
all the good bands need an album like that, don't they? All the critics love it, but nobody buys it.
Yeah.
I was laughing my ass off.
The new album got a way bigger focus on the melody lines.
Right.
The vocals are more in the spotlight as far as the production goes. So was that a
Yeah.
conscious decision? Was it a reaction on Venus Doom?
I think a subconscious reaction. You never want to repeat exactly what you've just done, because otherwise it would be, like fucking your wife every night. I'm not married, by the way, so I can say that easily. But just saying that it would feel the same old. There's no new sparks. You got to go into a sex shop and get the dildos and make it work again with the band. So
that's the theory and praxis difference in love, right?
It's still romance, love, and relationships. They're all different things, at least in my head. But in essence, everything we've ever written are pretty straightforward melodic pop songs. It's just that we have decided at times to wear them with different kinds of clothes. Like songs like Bleed Well or Dead Lover's Lane or Venus Doom, the title track. They could be on this album. It's just the production and the vibe was very different. And we wanted the previous album to have a bit more of a My Dying Bride, kind of slow, dirgy, doomy, a lot of fuzzy guitars and, kind of sludgy production as well. And we succeeded in that extremely well. But it's one of the things that, it was so weird music that none of the radios wanted really to play. And if you want to be successful in the mainstreams, you got to have a song or two played on the radio.
Right.
It seems. And not just like specialist metal programs. And so we didn't have that thing going for us. And then it's just, we needed to do something different. It's always the latest album the band's working on should feel like it's their last. They give everything you've got, or at least work on it, and that's how we felt with this one. It was just that's how the songs were born, and we worked on Like Saint Valentine, Invenere Veritas, and Catherine Wheel the first, and they kind of like they did show us the way of where the album's heading with the rest of the tracks.
Did it bother you when you come up with a great record like Venus Doom, get the good critics, but it didn't sell as much?
Well, obviously I would have loved it to sell a gazillion copies, because nobody wants to be poor, or nobody wants to play smaller clubs, or nobody wants to sell less tickets.
Right, but I'm talking more in the sense of respect for it. Or are the critics enough respect for you?
Oh, well, I respect the album, and that's enough. There was a tremendous reason to record an album like that. We've never had tried anything like that after our first album. Something a bit more spooky, left of the center, kooky, more soundtracky, fucked up, and there was a reason for it to happen. I was listening to Jane's Addiction at the time, and I wanted like a Jane's Addiction Ritual de la Habitual done in a My Dying Bride way.
Okay.
Just like a weird, eccentric album. And we succeeded in that extremely well, but without doing that album, we wouldn't have been able to do this one.
Yeah, that's the point.
So,
that's exactly why I was talking about
it.
Because it seems to be a reaction on the last record.
It always is. We've always done the weird album, and then the a more straightforward album, and then the weird album, and then the straightforward album. We did first Greatest Love Songs Volume 6, then Razorblade Romance, then the kind of experimental poppy album, which was Deep Shadows and Brilliant Highlights, then Love Metal, which was a rock album, then Dark Light. It's just like there's always been the kind of like the old school, new school kind of vibe. But I think that with this new one, we kind of combined very well everything we've done in the past with a bit more of an American sound, which was obviously that's why would we hire an American producer to make a sound like German band,
right?
Or a Danish band for that matter. It doesn't matter, but so we wanted to have the American expertise, in recording and producing. And for example, they do their drums very differently.
In
the
which
drums, they mix them really loud. They use different EQs. They record them way different. No samples. This album was funny in a way that it's just recorded so well. Normally, all the bands nowadays, they use samples on kicks and snares. This one doesn't. It's just the way they spend like a week doing drums, and normally we do drums in like 3 days, and then you like. So
it was a lot of work this time.
Yeah,
to play precise.
Yeah, it was heavy. It was heavy duty work for Gas and then Linde, because there's only all the distorted guitars. There's only 2 tracks per song. plus the solos. But there's not like doubling, like normally bands, they double shit tons.
Right.
But all the parts, it's one SG, Gibson SG on this side, one Telecaster on this side. That's the basic stuff. Then the clean guitars was done with a different guitar, but the setup was super simple, which also means that you have to play it really well, and you have to have really good takes, because when you double it, it just becomes this big wall of noise, which is a cool sound. But we wanted the album to breathe, to have more space for the vocals and for the keyboards as well. Keyboards take a lot of space, sonically. So it was just a different approach.
Mm-hmm. So it's easier to reproduce it live this time?
Fuck no. Nah, it's always tough, and it's funny because occasionally songs that you think that are gonna work perfectly live, they don't, and then the other way around, and then we don't know yet what songs people are gonna prefer. So obviously, when we're on tour, we're not gonna be playing the whole album. We're playing maybe 3-4 songs off in the album, and then we have so many old albums, we gotta play songs from them too. So this is gonna be interesting, us kind of rearranging some of the old songs to fit the new vibe. Like,
right.
To get
the whole picture of the show.
Yeah, kind of like just see how like Dead Lovers Lane or Bleed Well, how they're gonna work out when we lift the tempo up a bit, the key up a little bit, and have a bit more of that vibe of Screamworks on it. So I think that'll be a blast. That'll be a blast sorting that shit out.
So beside the keyboards and the more on the focus hook lines, what is the biggest progression or the biggest difference on the new record?
Well, let's say that there's in very short periods times we wanted to keep all the songs under 4 minutes, and preferably close to 3.5 minute mark, and fill them with musical information. So we did quite the opposite the last time around. We had like 10-minute songs, and this time around we wanted to compress as much information as a 10-minute song would have, but into very short. So our frame was this much smaller. And it was really tough to try to hit that frame.
Yeah, of course. So if there's less time, it's harder to load everything in correctly.
and and hopefully it's not messy because of that. That wasn't the idea. The idea was just to make a cohesive album that would be straight to the point. So there's no like meandering about. It's just like straight to the point songs that start and end. And then the next one starts again. So it's not so arty-farty as the one before. More pop art, maybe.
This American production, was there an artistical reason for it, or did you do it to please the American market more?
Well, obviously we have an American A&R, we have an American record company, and we had just been working with Tim Palmer, who's British, for years, and then with Healy, who's Finnish. We never worked with anybody from America, so myself, I wanted to see how it would work with an American. We worked with Kevin Shirley for a bit, who has produced albums for Iron Maiden, and he's Australian or South African or whatever. He's both. I think he has got both passports. He was born in South
American.
Africa. Not American anyway, but so it was just, I wanted to see how it works over there, how different it is, and that was mainly the reason. And then just to get that sound, because I wanted that full Foo Fighters type of sound, in a way that you have your massive November Rain drums,
right,
and then the classic rock guitars as opposed to metal guitars. I wanted the album's guitar sound more Guns N' Roses than Megadeth. So we had those things in mind. And Matt was good in those things, so we had a blast. But talking about markets, I don't know what's going to be a hit. I don't know whether Rammstein's Pussy is a hit over here, but I think that song is terrible. I think it's the worst song Rammstein's ever put out, and it's just a
Well, they got a
shitty...
porn video, they don't need a song.
Yeah, but it's a shitty... Well, why did they release a song? Why didn't they do a full-length adult film then, But I'm still pretty sure that most of the dicks are prosthetics, so it's not real. I know that from porn industry, working for a sex shop and knowing the difference. So there might be some real intercourse there, but some of it looks that it's prosthetic. That it's done later.
Yeah, I mean, when Flacca got tits, you realize that's fake.
Well, you never know. With that person, you never know. But just saying that it's you never know what's going to be big somewhere. I don't know what's like. You can't consider markets in that sense. And if you would, then whatever is huge in America in the rock world is big everywhere else. there's never been any, you know, even massive English bands are necessarily not universally big.
That's true, especially English bands, very big in the UK and nowhere else.
Well, a lot of them, but then, you know, that's not a point in being in a band. You know, we just wanted to do something different with a different kind of producer, somewhere different, see where it leads us. And it led us to this album, but this album's not out yet, so I don't know how people are going to react to it or if they're going to like it or not. That's tough to say.
It's pretty fresh for you as well, but do you already get the feeling if that step was worth it?
Yeah.
Do you like the result of it?
Well, I love the album. I'm really happy with it, and then I think that it's fresh, and it's got the words I used to describe what I wanted from the album before it was done was I wanted it to be an album of uplifting melancholy. As in, Depeche Mode are a perfect example of it, in a way.
Right.
I'm not talking about the sound. I'm talking about the fact that they have very melancholy songs, but people, when they go and see them play live, they're having a ball. They're having a blast. They dance into it. They're smiling. They're singing along. That kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. That kind of like cathartic, sad, melancholy vibe, but still being able to celebrate. You know, black celebration, kind of.
I got it.
Yeah, so that was kind of plan, and it didn't have anything to do with drum sounds.
Nope.
It was just like an overall vibe for the album, and in that we succeeded really well, so I'm really happy for that. Mm-hmm. It's just something new. After Venus Doom, you know, we did so many experiments on it. It was tough to try to find a new way in our own heads to figure out where to go. And but again, it happened naturally, so that's the cool thing.